Greetings, allies. It is Monday, October 14th, 2019. I have something in my throat, and this is your Cup of Jones. Cheers, everybody. This is not the Cup of Jones. This is the Cup of Troop. The Cup of Jones is in the studio right now, but I got the Cup of Troop always as a backup when I don't ask Amanda. Amanda's out walking Milo and Sophie, and I was just like, yoink, Cup of Troop. I just got water in it, I'm cleaning it out. I'm not putting anything weird in there. Hi, everybody. What's up? Happy Monday. I like that, like I said, love October. And I love that October is like, the first one was on the 7th. This is on the 14th. I like those even numbers in terms of days of the week. Just talking about day numbers. Last week was intense. We are right in the middle of review season. This week looks intense as well. Among other things in today's editorial, I will tell you and go through the fun week that I had last week. But it was just kind of one thing after another, which was great. It was a lot of work, but it really was. It's one of those things where my to-do list is, my to-do list always has a lot of things on it, but it was like 3 or 4 main projects at a time. And pretty much most of the allies can sympathize with that. Blood is definitely, must be a setting on the stream that got unchecked. What's up? Oh, what, my cup? Blood, is that what you're saying? All right, just making sure. Okay. Make sure there's no audio issues. Blood threw me for a second there. And we might as well talk about this week coming up because lots of reviews going on. And Ian and Dawn will be out this weekend. And Friday is Amanda Troop's birthday. And then on Saturday, Amanda's parents are coming into town on Friday. And then on Saturday, they're babysitting Milo. And Amanda and I are having like the first real social outing that we've had since June. And Ian and Dawn are going to be out. So hopefully I will still manage to make a lot of reviews happen this weekend. But we all have stuff going on. And this is not the season to have stuff going on. We have a lot to do before we all take off at the end of 2019. But last week we got a lot of reviews done. Where was my review list? Concrete Genie, Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, Borderlands 3, and Yooka-Laylee were all last week. Bunch of reviews before then, bunch of reviews now. Bloodworth just put one review on the shelf to work on another project. I'm reviewing 2 games right now. I'm going to hope to review 2 games. Little Town Hero and Cat Quest 2, which are both on Switch. And Cat Quest 2, I've played Cat Quest 1. Little Town Hero is a little outside my wheelhouse. It's interesting, the combat system. I was like, oh, here we go. I am definitely going to have to focus on this game. But we want to try to get all those projects done, but all the allies are running around. They will either be in town and on assignment this week are Ben Moore, Brad Ellis, and Michael Huber. All 3 will be gone tomorrow night when we gather for the Tuesday night group stream. My attendance has been extremely spotty with our group stream lately, but I think I will be there tomorrow night. But those 3 gentlemen definitely will not, and they're all working on very exciting things. So very fun, but kind of upsets our business schedule. And that's today's editorial, just to kind of talk about review season. Now that we are officially into it, now that we are into Q4, the end of the year. If you are new to Easy Allies, if this is your first year at Easy Allies, let's talk about Q4, because Q4 is nuts, and I think kind of speaks to how weird we are as a business, kind of how we operate generally at Easy Allies, as a Patreon, as content producers, video producers. I recorded an awesome conversation. Technically, Ian recorded it. I think he hit the record button. But Michael Damiani, myself, and Ian Hink sat down and talked about Link's Awakening. Ian finished it. I did not finish it by the time I had that conversation with Damiani. But I am very familiar with the story from Link's Awakening. We did the timeline and the Zelda retrospective at Game Trailers. And basically, Ian and I both shared our impressions on this game we had never played before. We never played the original. I do know what the original looks like, but, a lot of our new surprises just came from the actual game itself. And that was a very fun conversation. I was going to try to get that up this weekend, but Damiani, I think, is going to make the call to basically make that the next episode of Friend Code, because it ended up being about an hour conversation, and it was a jolly chat. But that also kind of factored into the very fun, nonstop week I had last week. So look forward to that. I'm excited about that. Look forward to today's episode. We'll get into this when we look at the schedule, but today's episode of Mysterious Monsters at 4 p.m. live, twitch.tv/easyallies. You might want to check it out, is all I'm saying. Should be a good episode. And what else is going on? Achieve It Yourself Season 2 has begun, and you all, are probably familiar with Achieve It Yourself. Everybody that is certainly people that are watching this live. And I just want to say thank you. I haven't talked about this that much on Cup of Jones, but thank you for the suggestions. I don't know if I could really think up any clever, like, achievable in 30 minutes to an hour Switch achievements. It's just not. I remember, like, as Bossman was listing them off when we were going through them, like, these are really clever. These are definitely people who have played this game a lot, who, you know, given that challenge, went back to their favorite Switch games and really tried to think outside the box of really silly things that you could do. And I very much enjoyed all of those. So thank you so much. You know, I think about that show and it's like, wow, Ian worked really hard, you know, putting all of those shows together, editing all of that. Kyle worked really hard, you know, producing all of that, hosting that when we organized that and, you know, showed up for the shoot. And then all of us showed up for it. And all of us obviously tried really hard to make those achievements happen, whether they happened or not. And I'm just running through my mind, you know, everybody involved in that show and everyone who sent in those suggestions, including people whose suggestions unfortunately didn't get chosen for the show. Not only were instrumental in that show happening, but did a fantastic job. And I think really kind of upped the ante from the first season as well. And that was a fun thing to do. So all of the fun Phase 4 projects continue. And Trailer Jones continues to elude me. We'll talk about the last week that I had, but not only were trailers popping up, but, you know, I have a couple that are recorded. It's like a bit now. It's like you know, they have like Kyle does the bits on the podcast. It's like my bit on Cup of Jones now, just to bring up Trailer Jones, be like, I'll get back to it. Thank goodness, you know, we don't have goals anymore. And yes, and before we look at the schedule, which I mean, I guess we just bring it up right now. Bam. You'll notice Ian and Don are out on Wednesday. Wednesday's usually stacked, but Ian and Don are out, and Mike are out this week because everybody's out. They're either on assignment or they're on vacation or they're taking personal time. Everybody's doing stuff this week. Big crazy week. But there's some what you lack in these fun streams. I guarantee you some fun game coverage coming up this week. Some fun things that Alex is working on that I am personally excited about for the business. But Frame Traps today. I was on this episode of Frame Trap. Again, talking about my very busy week that I had last week. Mysterious Monsters coming up. I am, you know, in that. Tomorrow night we're playing a game I'm very fascinated by. I haven't seen a lot of, but Ian just flips out about this game. And this is just something that seems like an absolutely perfect group stream game. Designed for exactly that kind of environment, and we might just have the, you know, perfect amount, a number of people to pull that off. So looking forward to finally checking that game out tomorrow night. Achieve It Yourself is on Wednesday. Everybody wants to check that out. Again, if you are patrons and somehow missed it, 2 episodes. You can check it out right now if you are at that early access tier. Pokemon Silver continues on Thursday. Podcast, of course, friend code this weekend. Blood Pact, which I haven't seen Blood in chat. I don't know what Blood Pact is doing. I remember seeing the votes, but I don't know if the votes are public. And Friday, the Grand Stream Saga. Your guess is as good as mine. You all know what that is, and I have no idea what that is. I should probably look that up before Cup of Jones today. And then our shows this weekend. So yeah, pretty straightforward week again because some of our streams are out. But you are getting some fun, you know, a new episode of Achieve It Yourself, a new episode of Mysterious Monsters is hopefully a fun week and balances that out show-wise. Votes are not public and don't finish until Wednesday. And you did see me in chat. Wow. Oh, I did. And I meant, wow. That, yes. With that, Bloodworth sass on the air. That's salt. On my face. Let's get into business questions. Cheers to Brandon K. Gann, topping it off. First question, several times. Can the unoccupied chairs in the new Trailer Jones graphics be shortened just slightly in an effort to be not distracting from the trailer itself? Or would that be too much work? As I'm a novice in graphic design, I don't know if it's its own layer. It is its own layer, but there is definitely at least one more layer going on there. And I don't know if I trust my ability. I can imagine Chris LaRue being like, yeah. He did point out that the silhouettes can be moved around in case I want to change someone's height. You know, in case I'm like, Blood's not that tall, and I can, like, move him around. But I can imagine I can do it, but I love how specific that note is. That's awesome. And again, considering, you know, haven't really rendered out an actual full episode of that yet, I definitely have time to tweak it. But and we can tweak it moving forward. Cheers. Never too late to tweak Trailer Jones. Mike Cook 1, with all the discussions that must have taken place around new shows, what shows or ideas came up that either you wanted to do but can't at the moment, or shows that you all disagreed on? The shows that we disagreed on were the shows that we canceled, basically. I don't recall any newsworthy shows that somebody suggested that we like disagreed on, we might have just thought like, nah, maybe not the time to do it now. But I know that the two of the most contentious conversations that we can talk about. Oh, and I'm not going to tell you about new shows that we didn't either. We can't at the moment. I'm not going to tell you about any of that stuff because we're going to do that eventually and then be spoilers. But I will tell you about tournaments and Hall of Greats were contentious. We definitely, there were definitely some allies that were like, can we just not do Hall of Greats anymore, please? Like, like some of us had to fight for Hall of Greats. And same thing with tournaments. And rightfully so. Again, it's like, that doesn't mean that like we're torturing allies to go through that. It just means that, we're looking at all of the stressful, strenuous parts of our job. We're looking at, things that we can, minimize, things that we can streamline, things that we can organize better, and projects that we can all take on together. If we only have one or two people doing it, can we all approach this from a group perspective? I mean, we are still going to do Hall of Greats. We're still going to do tournaments. Just not all the allies love that going into the, and wanted to bring it up in terms of how can we improve this? How can we make this better for everybody? And so that not only was a conversation that we had twice at two different Phase 4 meetings, but that is a conversation that we continue to have every time we have one of those things, just to make sure that everybody's cool with it. Everybody's having a good time. Because I think those are the two. Hall of Greats and tournaments is when we're like, yeah, I'm going to make a speech, or I'm going to, try to make a point here or not, entertain the audience, or, get on a soapbox for a bit and try to convince somebody of something else, or, dunk on somebody or make a joke, depending on whatever anybody tends to do. But there's just always that little sense in the background of like, yeah, but I won this though, right? I won, and it goes back to the playground, like playing in the sand and scraping your knees and kids crying and screaming at each other. And it's an easy thing for us to not do because not only from, it brings almost all of us stress because we have to like bring this presentation. I don't think it brings Don stress. I think Don just strolls in there like nobody's business, and Don just does what Don does. Well, the rest of us stress about it. But I think there definitely should be a level of stress. I think that is kind of us playing ball in terms of a sense of competitiveness that I think needs to be a part of our channel if we're going to be streaming. There's just got to be some sort of competitive nature every once in a while. Opinion Yell is also, which I definitely recommend if you've missed Opinion Yell, is also kind of the same thing. It's like us being competitive, but in a lighthearted way. And so I definitely want to be competitive with those guys. Case in point, another example about tournaments is, Ben is extremely good at fighting games. And so if Ben's reviewing a fighting game and then we're going to do a tournament, Ben's like, that's probably not going to be that entertaining of a tournament because don't take this the wrong way, but I'm just going to wipe the floor with all of you because not only am I just, not only am I just inherently better at these games, I spend a lot more time playing these games, and I've certainly spent a lot more time playing this particular game. And so it would take a lot of time, whereas when we crack out something like, what is that infamous Power Stone? We played Power Stone 2 and, Boss when it was Gormond, it kept schooling us. Like that is the fighting game magic that you want. Like that weird fighting game on that one, like arcade collection where like somebody was a turtle or so, it's like, yes, like those are the type of fighting tournaments that we really want to dive into, and are really fun. And I think, balance out in a way that we want to just have naturally, when we get together as allies, because we don't, when we do something presentationally, kind of like the concert, if you think about stuff that we've done in the past, I'm taking a very long time answering this question. We want to plan it as much as we can. We can't plan Hall of Greats. We can't plan tournaments because we don't know what people are going to do when they get there. We don't know what games or people are going to bring. And all Damiani can really do is just kind of organize the thing in terms of making sure people don't bring separate games. He gets the icons ready. He organizes it in a row. He collects the votes. But he can't really like stop somebody mid argument or something, or, mid presentation and be like, wait, that's not the way to do the presentation. So we all kind of have to be on our best behavior. We have to bring our A game when we do that stuff. And so you want to give people the tools to be able to do that, but you also want to create an environment where it just kind of happens naturally. And so the conversation was framed around that, around how do we make Hall of Greats inherently fun? How do we make tournaments inherently fun while still kind of capturing that insaneness, still kind of like, buffering. Basically, if Ian's going to say anything nasty about Red Dead Redemption 2 or Grand Theft Auto 5, that I have like a place that I can go and cry off camera. Just basically that we all have are again tools. Happy Gaming. Given it's the spookiest month of the year, I was wondering if there are any plans to put Huber and Kyle into a room together to do a full playthrough of a spooky game of some sort, with Kyle's consent, of course. Yeah, see, that you had me until there. The Outlast 2 and Resident Evil 7 playthroughs that you were also featured on were a ton of fun to watch, even if they don't necessarily have the most views compared to something like Keanu's E3 reveal. I personally feel like these two allies are a good combo because Huber loves horror and Kyle is easily frightened. You could rephrase that by saying Huber loves horror and Kyle hates horror. It makes for a good yin and yang for actually enjoying the story while getting a little spooked at the same time. Maybe a Silent Hill 2 play with Ian would be appealing and could also get more allies involved to come in and out. Any personal thoughts? I know you're a fan of the Halloween spirit, and I'd love to see more or Halloween-themed content come through. Yes, we can kind of get a little bit more into this in the editorial today because it's... Man, every time October starts, we're always like, yeah, October, woo, let's do lots of scary stuff. And then we look at the schedule, it's like, and you have the perfect storm of reviews, Phase 4, and just me with the kid and just personal stuff that's just preventing us from doing a lot of those things. We're still going to do a Halloween stream. We're still going to keep stuff as spooky as we can. There are definitely spooky stuff, like we demoed Medieval earlier this month, or at least, I think it was last month. Did we do that in October? So, hopefully we'll get as much of that done as possible. We haven't really decorated the studio either, which is something we normally do. It's just, it's our first October in the studio, and it's the October, like, immediately after Phase 4. So, we're just really, the days where we would, like, maybe do an extra Halloween stream are shoots to make sure these shows happen, make sure we keep up with our schedules and the stuff that we already promised to do. But Happy Gaming, man, I love it so much. I would love to watch a scary movie every day. I would love to stream, scary games. I love Undead Nightmare from Red Dead. I love the Halloween portion of Bully. I love always going back to that every year if I can. I'd love to replay Evil Within 2 or never finish Silent Hill 2. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to celebrate this month. It'd be fun to. It's a goal. It's a future goal, maybe someday, to have. Somebody step in and do that. Just hire Elvira for the month and just have her stream on our channel. Classical. Are there any plans to bring back I Love Last Gen next year? For those that don't know what Classical's talking about, I Love Last Gen was a series that we did at Game Trailers. Kind of like, I love the 80s, I love the 70s, I love the 90s. The VH1 would do, we were, the MTV Network's arm at Viacom. And so that was we were around people that produced content like that, and they came in and worked with us to produce something similarly. Now that you have a studio, hopefully it wouldn't be too hard to have people just swing by when they are in town to record a couple segments. Maybe lean on Andrea Renee now that she's in LA to help you wrangle in some more guests. Lean on Andrea. No, we're not going to do that. None of us produced that. Nobody at Easy Allies was responsible for I Love Last Gen. Nobody. Kyle might have been like a PA or something. I don't know if Kyle was involved in that because I think that was a Jeremy Hoffman joint, who is now at, Epic and working on Fortnite. So all of the shenanigans you're seeing with Fortnite, Hoffman is in some way behind some of that stuff. And that's just not our jam at all. That type of it was funny. This game from last gen, Assassin's Creed, man, boy, that first game was buggy. It was like that kind of stuff, like graphics, come by and gameplay, and they're always scared to use music from the actual game. So the music, so they talk about Uncharted, be like, this music's not from Uncharted. What the hell is it? Because it was for television. But that's not. Yeah, it's not all bag, baby. That was the GTTV team, says Bloodworth. Nice. So no, but what would be fun is if we get that guest show up and running, or if we do more guest stuff. It behooves us, kind of like when we had Kojima stop by Game Trailers, to grab Bossman in his Liquid Bossman outfit, bump into Kojima and be like, ooh, as long as that person's here. Like when David Hayter was in there and I grabbed him saying something for the Metal Gear retrospective. So it's got to remember to do that. I think it was Judd Hirsch was in Family Guy episodes. There's one Family Guy episode where they open up a rocket or something, like a nuclear weapon, and Judd Hirsch is in there, and Brian's like, Judd Hirsch, what are you doing in here? And he's like, nothing. They're like, oh, okay. And then there's another, Bender opens up his chest one time on Futurama, and Lucy Liu is still in there, and she's like, I love you, and he closes it, and that was just leftover dialogue from when Lucy Liu was around. So animated shows are always ooh when somebody can we get you free for something? Okay, and can you just come in and just say whatever, and we'll write it into the script. So we should do more of that. We should definitely have some sort of segment that we're as long as you're here, talk about this. Maroon Kashwaha, I remember asking a question about shorter form content to appeal to a wider audience. The idea you had of snipping bits of the podcast and uploading them separately was a great idea. Any word on whether that will happen or not? No word, but it has been passed on to Kyle. That was brought up at a meeting. I did talk to Kyle about it outside of that meeting as well. One of his concerns is just confusion on playlists for you trying to find the podcast and you're like, is this the podcast? Is this the full podcast? What's going on? Like if our channel was like the podcast and maybe one other thing, but considering how many things we have on the channel, might get a little muddy. But when I say stuff, some things I'll say to Kyle and Kyle's like, no. And then some things I'll say to Kyle and he says like maybe, but I can tell he means no. And then some things I'll say to Kyle and I can tell it's part of kind of things he's been thinking about. So I think that is something that Kyle does a lot of experimentation with the podcast. So I know that is in Kyle's, witch's brew for the podcast, but I don't know if it's a spell he'll cast soon. Alexander Zirianov, what will happen if an ally assigned to review a game can't finish it because it's too difficult for him? We'll see with Little Town Hero. Either he isn't skilled enough or he made some bad choices during his playthrough. Will you produce a review based on the incomplete experience you had? Will you ask another ally or even external person, possibly via a save game, to help? Will you just abandon the review and make a don't skip instead? Also, will your decision change based on how many other outlets have the same problems with difficulty? This has never happened. This has never happened. I've been making reviews since 2005. So I've been making reviews for 14 years. I've never heard of anything remotely like this happening. The gnarliest deadlines that I ever had to hit in terms of being like afraid were the retrospectives. Like I remember playing like what is that PlayStation 1 RPG that also takes place in Evil East, that everything is really polygonal, but it does like a really cool style, and the guy's got like a big ponytail. And it's like really slow. Like the combat's Vagrant Story. Yeah. Vagrant Story was so stressful because I really wanted to get Vagrant Story in that Evil East episode. And I was like, Vagrant Story. I'll just gonna play Vagrant Story over the weekend. I'll get like 10 hours of it. And then like after 10 hours, like I was in the same dungeon and I was like, what the hell? Like Fragrant Story. Thank you, Taco. I was just like, come on. That game's like, and attack, but it's so cool. If you upped the frame rate of that game, if you just like made that game perform faster and put that on Switch, I would full play through that instantly. I wouldn't stream it, but I would definitely do that. So I've had that before when it came to like features. Top 10s was definitely like a fear. But reviews, it never was back at game trailers, and I think it would be even less of an issue now because Bloodworth says, I wrote the review of Dewey's Adventure without finishing the final boss fight because the motion controls were too frustrating. Boom. But you probably said that in the review. Just case in point, we haven't finished this dumb game. The don't skip route sounds like the likeliest thing, but it like when you say abandon a review, that sounds like we dropped the review off at the pound to be euthanized. But like abandoning reviews happens all the time. Like abandoning reviews, I abandoned my child. I abandoned, what did I abandon? Super Mario Maker. I was like, Super Mario Maker, here we go. We'll start that tomorrow. And then I had a baby. So I didn't review that. And I was planning on doing Builders. Oh no, Builders. Builders was the one I got. Mario Maker I got like a week later. And I was like, Mario Maker. I don't have time to finish Builders. I'm not going to review Mario Maker. So things have happened where scheduling just pops up, or we get into a game and we're like, But that it's impossible for that not to get lumped into the whole editorial conversation surrounding the game. So it's like not something that we want to broadcast that we're like, yeah, we didn't want to review that. It's like, why? Is there something wrong with the game? Like, no, just for dumb personal reasons. We were busy. But it might seem to to outside people if we like label it like almost reviewed. Stuff transitions and review to don't skip is one thing, but review oftentimes the next stop on the bus is Frame Trap, where we can have a conversation about that. And that's what's also fun, where you have a game like that I didn't talk about on this last episode of Frame Trap, but and maybe this time I'll have time to finish Dragon Quest II. So on the next time I'm on Frame Trap, I can talk about Dragon Quest I and Dragon Quest II. That conversation will never get old. So it's fun covering games, making time for games, knowing that will eventually be a Frame Trap. You kind of like, I load Frame Trap games like I have a video game Batman utility belt. I said Dragon Quest 1 and 2. The Sinking City. Red Dead Online, the new classes. Ready to go. If I'm ever QB on a Frame Trap today, I can do it. Straw Hat Ninja. I know the focus. Let's see what Blood. Okay, I abandoned a Team Sonic adventure. Have all the footage, finished it, and everything. Oh, you know what I abandoned? You know what I classically abandoned was Dinosaur VR, Dino Frontier. I beat it. I had all the footage. I just never wrote a script. I was doing something at the time. Team Sonic Racing. Sorry. Haha. And I read the wrong one first. Thank you for your honesty there, Bloodworth. Straw Hat Ninja. I know the focus is on reaching new patrons, and you talked about how happy you were to see new names last week. But what about us old timers? Do you guys recognize names that have been around since the beginning? And do you ever get battles between new patrons versus old in a matter of opinion or taste? No. Battles between new patrons versus old. That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm not like 100% sure I know what you're talking about, but yeah, there's no battles between any patron. Any patron at any time, new or old, has an opportunity to be weird. Yeah, there's no distinguishing between, if you're a patron of Easy Allies, if you just follow us, if you like want to message us on Patreon, you can do that. And you just make that account and say howdy. But yeah, we definitely recognize old timer names. You want to talk about old timers? Mike Hook 1, who asked us our question about new shows, started that very long diatribe about shows that we disagreed on. Mike Hook 1 is old school. Old timers. Mike Hook 1 is an old timer. Mikey Mizek Novak is an old timer. And some of you might have changed, names, but and definitely there are, those that the hashtagonist is an old timer. Yeah, but they, of course, I mean, that's like the whole thing about. I mean, I can't. When you say like, do you recognize old names? I can't tell you the inside of the 8 other allies' brains if they recognize names. They might be like, yeah, I know that person, and like, do you really? But that's what I really like about my position, even if I might hand these responsibilities off, 5 years from now. I really like doing the podcast producer credits, and I really like doing the community showcase because I get to know everyone. I get to know. It's also interesting putting Cuppa Jones on top of that, seeing names that pop up on Cuppa Jones and the showcase and are in that producer credits tier, or seeing people that just do Cuppa Jones or just do the showcase, or seeing people that regularly do one and then just for one episode of the showcase, boop, like a Zephyr Moon, just pops in on Cuppa Jones to mention something. First time ever, last episode. So yeah, it's. That doing those producer credits, definitely 2 names to shout out are Sean German Efficiency Clinton, who at that tier, even though I pay him for my training as does Brad Ellis, that he pays all of us back at that tier. Brent Phillips is also at that tier. If you recognize that name when it pops up during producer credits, Brent Phillips is a friend of mine for a long time, built a couple versions of game trailers and built EasyAllies.com. Yeah, so definitely some fun people in there. Michael Kozachenko, definitely shout out. Used to work at GT. It's been a family member for a while. And it's really fascinating to notice those things. I brought up the new people just because it's like visiting old friends every time I go back through that list. Not only visiting old friends to recognize names, but the list that I'm reading during the producer credits is just dreamt up by Patreon. Like sometimes that's like the exact same list with new people just kind of thrown in randomly, and sometimes they jumble it around. But there's like some names, like how can you forget Kim Monk, Vonderleaf, Hagginson, Peterson? Like there's some words that just like attach themselves to your brain. And then there's some weird like phonetic things, like they'll put 2 names back to back that sound the same. It's like, what? How did that happen? How did that happen? And so like when I'm saying it sounds like I'm reading a poem, but I'm like, I'm not. It's going to sound weird when I say them both with the same inflection, but I shouldn't change it just because they rhyme. I'm not like speaking another language or something. Kozachenko used to be an intern. Kozachenko was an intern. I believe just an intern. Man, there were a lot of people. Again, Blood always gets mad because I forget like when he worked at GT and when he started. So if I can't remember Blood's dates, yeah, and just a lot of names. It's what's getting fuzzy is the like end of the 2014, the end of the GT year, or 2017 rather, 16. The end of the GT year and the beginning of the Easy Allies year. People that discovered us like right around Shenmue time and then made the transition to Easy Allies. Some of that line gets blurred between people that discovered us right when Easy Allies started and before that. It was just, it's so interesting going back to that full podcast list, revisiting old friends, being like, oh, all these people, yay. Oh, look who moved a tier. Look who dropped down a tier, or look who's a mega sponsor now. And then all of a sudden, here's a weird word. My brain definitely sees some, whoa, I've never seen that word before. And it's not just a new patron, it's a new $20 patron. So it's a big deal, but obviously so are old timers. Cuppa Jones old timers. And speaking out, shout out to Straw Hat Ninja. Just learned that that's a One Piece reference. If I learned that before, I forgot it. Snow Cone Guy, autumn and winter are upon us again. And with that, an increased risk of people catching a cold or the influenza virus. Obviously, it's out of our control to completely avoid getting sick, but are there any measurements to limit the risk of other EZA virus knocking out the whole crew? I got my flu shot. Everyone should get their flu shot. I should maybe message that in Slack. Are the allies encouraged to wash their hands more often? Are allies that feel a bit funny encouraged to stay at home? Yes. Always, 100%. Is sharing snacks and food with each other restricted? Nah. Do you provide vitamin-rich fruits at the studio? No, we could. As someone who just caught a cold and totally blames his coworkers for it, wink, not winking, I am interested in what you try to do to limit that risk. Or do you have an approach of, if it's going to happen anyways, let's not make ourselves crazy about what we can't avoid? I have my fingers crossed for all of you to make it to summer without getting sick. Well, we did have our, the EZA virus that wiped us out before, so I think that definitely changed our protocols in terms of when people are allowed back in the studio. We're definitely, somebody gets a very easy pass at Easy Allies if they're like, I'm sick, I just don't want to get other people sick. It's like, yep. I had my friend come by this weekend that wanted to come by and see Milo last weekend. He's like, I'm a little bit sick. And it's like, why risk it? What's the point? Just come by a week later. So yeah, no point in risking that. But at the same time, it probably is going to happen to somebody. One cold is going to be passed to someone else, but we can definitely mitigate the damage before it gets any worse than that. Morgan Mahala, and thank you, Snowcone Guy. Appreciate it. Since the holidays are coming and going, what is the vacation and holiday situation like at Easy Allies? Does it depend on how much work there is on deck? Is it a more casual system in place? Super cash. Do things get put aside if multiple allies need to be off at a certain time? I understand there have been lost family members this year, and I only mean to inquire about the run-of-the-mill arrangement for time away from work, and fully understand that certain circumstances will be given appropriate consideration. All circumstances are given appropriate consideration at the holidays. Blood is actually like the first to really kick off the conversation. Blood makes his holiday plans well in advance, which is really great, as you can imagine Daniel Bloodworth would do, and kind of gets us all being like, oh yeah, what are we doing? I'm staying home this holidays. Oh, it's nice. Everybody's coming to me. We got the new baby. Everybody come to us. So that'll be nice. It'll be nice to still be around. Looking forward to get, if I don't finish Control by then, I'm definitely gonna get through Control. Maybe finish Death Stranding if I haven't finished that yet by then. But yeah, we really just kind of lay it all out on the table and then figure out what needs to be done before then. So it's not a matter of what work do we need to do in December and then how are we going to schedule our vacations around that. It's what vacations, does everybody want to do, and then what work can they do around that to make sure that we don't completely go dark, because I think that's the main concern is we want to just make sure stuff is happening. So we are still quote unquote working-ish during the holidays, but those dates are set up in advance. There's not really can't wait for Control DLC to arrive. There's going to be DLC. Oh boy. Alex AI, now that Phase 4 started and the allies have consistent streaming schedules, are there plans for more sponsors for those streams? Yeah, that's another thing from the Phase 4 is a larger conversation just around sponsorship, ways that we can, because you've seen us do the Hogue Law Clock, and Sweet Justice sponsors E3. So yeah, events that we do, are there ways that we can bring in other sponsors, and just kind of a general, same thing with merchandise, just kind of a general out of the box conversation about that. And so much like changes we want to make to our preview coverage that we necessarily haven't had time to do because we are just cookie monstering reviews right now. It's just something we haven't had time to finalize. And so not necessarily a Phase 5 thing, but just will come later in Phase 4. I don't know. We're probably not going to call it Phase 5. Yeah, I've always had my laptop even when I'm out of town, says Daniel Bloodworth. Crazy Bird, do EZA YouTube videos generate more ad revenue if one lets the entire ad play at the beginning of videos, or does EZA receive the same amount of revenue if one skips or watches the entire ad? I usually skip, but I wonder if it's more beneficial for EZA if I watch the entire ad. I don't think so. I don't think that reflects on the channel if people want to watch a commercial, but I don't know. Maybe Blood can expound upon that, but I doubt it. Skip that sucker. And if it makes a difference, it's from the revenue that we get from YouTube, and it's a fraction of a penny, so I wouldn't bother. Thank you, Bloodworth. So yeah, I wouldn't bother either. It's a fraction of a penny of a fraction of our overall income, so skip it. Daniel Garza Andrade, are you tired of playing video games, or at least have that feeling? With the coverage that you need to do, playing a game wouldn't be the same as 10 years ago. Definitely is not the same as 10 years ago, but that's a good thing. Where you can play a game without talking about it, just enjoy the pleasure of playing it. Guess what? 10 years ago, I was working at Game Trailers. So, and 10 years before that, I was a sophomore in college, and I was playing Perfect Dark on the N64. Good times. And I was thinking, and I was learning nonlinear editing. I was thinking about like video production, and I was like, I want to make movies. And I was like, no, you want to make videos, dude. You want to make videos about video games. I would have let just rip open time and space. Buy a DV cam deck. I'd love that. Buy what? DV cam deck. Large DV cam, not the mini DV, large DV cam deck. Then you S video and 2 audio cables. Record the footage you're playing. All the games you're playing right now, record this. And then put it on a drive. Buy a various drive. Not tape drives, but hard drives. Thumb drives if you have to. Just put it all on there. Keep it. You'll need it later for countdowns. Do you think the rest of the allies feel this way? Daniel, we are so crazy addicted to games, it is not even funny. It's dangerous. It's a little dangerous. Like, Damiani gets dangerous, Like, Damiani will play 14 for 4 days without sleeping or eating. No problem. Yeah, we didn't have thumb drives yet, though. Zip disks. Yeah, put it on a zip. Just buy a computer and put it on it. Yeah, the main reason... Yeah, I could see it in everybody's eyes when we first started EZA, and I was like, are we going to still do this? Are we going to this Game Trailers thing? Are we going to rename this and keep doing this? And everyone was like, please keep the codes coming, please. I have Puzzle Quest sitting on my Switch right now. Puzzle Quest. I've played that on mobile. Now I'm like, maybe I'll play that on Switch. Blood gave me the code. He's like, we got it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll play that. When I looked at Doom is on my PlayStation 4, not the original, but the remake of Doom is sitting on my PlayStation 4 right now. I'm like halfway through the campaign. I want to play it so bad. They keep adding new legendary heroes to Red Dead Online, and I just want to go hunt them. It's like Hitman. Hitman is like the legendary targets. They've been doing that with Red Dead Online. They're like, look at this guy with his crazy mustache and his like evil goat that follows him around. Do you want to go shoot that guy? It's like, I do. I want to find him. I want to hunt that man down. Man, we are just crazy about games. And I love Bloodward. It's still hanging on the last question. Burning to CDs would probably be the most forward thinking in hindsight. You would think. I burned a lot of the retrospective footage to CDs and DVDs, and the DVDs went bad. I put them in a folder and zipped the folder and put it on a shelf and didn't touch it, and then would take them out for countdowns, and it was bad. It also sucked because everything was 720 by 480, and so it's like sometimes stuff was pixelated and it would hold up if you'd blow it up later, because I saved that stuff in pretty high quality QuickTime. But Tokyo Slim says disk rot. Yeah, it's a sad thing. I'm actually switching the editorial out today. We're going to talk about disk rot. No, Daniel, we are all so crazy into games. It's ridiculous. Maybe one day, like Bossman or some, Don or somebody's just like, I'm out. Ian's like, I'm not playing games anymore. I'm like, oh, whoa, surprising. But we're crazy. Crazy for playing video games. Scott Kaplan, is there any plan to do a Pokemon Sword and Shield spoiler mode or discussion? I know the cadence of Brandon Plays Pokemon and Brandon's son Kyle Moon took a lot of enjoyment out of the game, but I would still love to hear your thoughts about the new games. Yeah, this will be great because I'm not reviewing it. I think Ben will probably review this game, but that's not a promise. We'll see who's doing what when the game comes out and when we get the game. Yeah, we're all going to play it, and a lot of us are going to play it, and it's just a question of when we finish it. That's always the big catch for spoiler mode, and given how nutty this review season is, and given how close that is to the holidays, the last person for the spoiler mode might be finished with it by the time the first person on the spoiler mode leaves for vacation. So we might be like, oh, we missed it. So if you're down for like a Pokemon spoiler mode in like January, then, we might swing it. But I think I could see that as a major thing, delaying that. But it just all depends on schedules. But we want to do it. I want to do it. I'm sure Kyle would love to do it. I would love to hear all of Kyle's stupid gripes about Pokemon Sword. David Lincolnbrink, in your Phase 4 announcement stream, Damiani premised. In your Phase 4 announcement stream, Damiani promised a lengthy Patreon post regarding his decision to stop producing Game Sleuth. I understand that the show had to end, but I was looking forward to hearing from about his perspective. So I was disappointed when the post never happened. Is it still coming? Yeah, it should be up. I haven't checked it. Premised. That's like Key and Peele. Damiani wrote it, and we read it, and then sent it back to Damiani, and I don't think I gave my approval. So like, I'll take that one. That was on me. But if Damiani hasn't posted that, he will post that today or very shortly. So he's written it. It's ready. That was a total oversight on me. Just dealing with other Phase 4 stuff. Asbo Zapruder. Okay, so if Phase 4 of Easy Allies was planning Jason's bar mitzvah, would it choose round tables or square tables? Round tables, of course, so everybody can see each other evenly. But it's interesting because I know Asbo Zapruder's been posting lots of like weird things, and people are like, okay, first A, what's going on? And B, why isn't this in personal questions? Because this is clearly like musical theater nonsense. But I do want to point out, and this is personal, but I am going to take the time because we're still under an hour. This is a quote for Jason's bar mitzvah is from Falsetto Land. Falsetto Land, which is the second act of a musical called Falsettos. And what's interesting is a lot of people are like, is it weird to be called Dad? And I'm like, nah, not really. It's not up yet. Okay. Damiani will post that as soon as possible. I gave him the green light to post that last night. But people were like, is it weird to call him son? And I'm like, it's kind of weird, a little bit to call Milo my son. And Amanda sometimes is like, isn't it weird that we made a baby? And I'm like, it's a little bit weird, but I'm getting used to it. But what was weird was I played a dad in college when I did Falsetto Land, just the second act of Falsetto. It's just an hour-long show. And I had a son. That son has actually gone on to do shows on Broadway and stuff. He's actually a very talented actor. And so like the two of us would joke because we were like about the same age, but I was like, I'm your dad. Ha ha ha. And it's weird to be thinking about Falsetto Land now and being like, oh, I'm a dad now. I'm actually a dad. I'm actually that guy. I'm actually as old as that character is now. And, I have a son now. So that's weird. It's weird to think of roles I've played in the past where I pretended to be a father. And now I'm like, oh, did I do well? No. Usually you don't. I don't think round tables helps see any more easily, but provides extra space to get more plates, seats around the same general area. Well, thank you, Blood. But no, that makes sense because it's like if I'm on one side, because it depends on how big the square tables are. Because if it's 3 and 3 and 3 and 3, then the person on the other side of the person on the left has to look like around the person to their immediate left to see the person on the other side. Whereas the curved, you have a little bit of extra. You know what I mean? That's why the round table, dude. That's why, King Arthur did what he did. He's just like, we're all going to be equal. No one's going to have any weird corners. We're all going to be staring at each other. I'm not at the head of this, like we're all, Scroll. Sergey P. Is the process of making the podcast public on YouTube not automated? It didn't show up on time, so I wonder if it's not automated. What's the reason for that? Bloodworth replies, there's no method to automate going from an unlisted video to a public one. No, someone has to be there to do it manually. Sergey replies to that, it should be possible to find in the most recent unlisted video, the title of which contains Easy Allies podcast, and make it public via a script. Then execute that script exactly at the time for a podcast to go public. Sorry, I just love to automate routine things. I don't know if Blood's going to do that. It's on Bossman to do that. That's a used to be a Damiani job. I believe that's a Bossman job now. So classic Bossman mistake. Classic podcast nonsense. I mean, I guess with the new schedule, I can see Bossman like, every not every Sunday, but every now and then on a Sunday being like, oh, right. That's the day today. It's not Friday. It's Sundays now. M-Bun, I'm concerned with the way in which Easy A has abruptly ripped the no politics Band-Aid off, instead itself through the previous podcasts, and especially through Frame Trap now. Not only were these, if you missed both these podcasts, we talked about what's going on with China and Blizzard. Not only were these very long discussions that made up large portions of the mentioned podcasts, but I worry about the potential repercussions of some of the language used during these discussions for reasons not best to go into here. Thanks for that. I still primarily enjoy Easy A as a place away from politics, and I hope the decision to cover the story in such excessive depth. Does not jeopardize. I don't mean to poke fun. I love the words excessive depth. I don't think I've seen those two words put together, and I enjoy them together. Does not jeopardize this environment where many people of various backgrounds can meet neutrally to enjoy games going forward. Separately, I hope future Blizzard events and games aren't chosen to be boycotted by EZA on political grounds. I know you understand my sentiment on that, Jones, and as you yourself has many times talked about, separating art from the sometimes horrible things around and even occasionally contributing toward the creation of it. Yes. And as much has been, it's interesting because you're like, I hope we don't talk about politics more, which is why I'm asking this question on Cup of Joe. It's like, well, I'm going to talk about politics now because you asked the question. Or just not necessarily these politics, but just politics. And I'll do it very quickly because it's not today's editorial. And we have one more question from Alec Church. So there's a difference between something that would affect all of the allies and something that would affect just a single ally. So when you say, I want to address the boycotting thing first. So when you're like, I hope future Blizzard events and games aren't chosen to be boycotted by EZA. If the only one that's of us that's interested in reviewing Diablo 4 is Ben Moore and Brad Ellis, and neither one of them want to review it because of a political stance, we're not going to force them to review it. So we are not going to review Diablo 4 if that happens. That is a hypothetical situation. I am not making decisions on behalf of those two gentlemen. I'm not putting words in their mouth. But it is the right of all of the allies to decide what projects. Again, like we don't crack the whip in that sense. We might leer at an ally. We might, tap our wrists or wag our fingers, but like we're not going to, it's not a directive. Their jobs aren't in danger if they don't necessarily review one game over another. It's kind of like this difficulty thing that Alexander Zirianov came up, like just that. I remember Alexander bringing that up, but whoever talked about difficulty in games, if we couldn't get past a certain point, it's like the same thing that hasn't happened yet. We haven't had a big high profile game just slip through the cracks because nobody was interested in it. So I don't see that happening because I don't see that happening in terms of a large scale decision that everyone is making on behalf of the entire company. And when you talk about like like a Band-Aid being ripped off, that definitely hasn't happened in terms of easy allies making a large decision based on something politically, because that almost never happens because we are, like you were saying, we are, many people of various backgrounds can meet neutrally to enjoy games going forward. That's also what we want within Easy Allies. That's what we want within the 9 allies. And so we're not going to bring up something if we know it's a contentious point with somebody else, or even potentially could be, because why put yourself out in that situation if we are on a podcast that's recording or if we are live. And we don't want to make decisions like, for example, we don't want to tweet something out unless we are comfortable with knowing that all of the allies are generally on the same page about this, that we know that the tweet is going to happen, that we know that everybody is like, yes, that is something that thematically we can all agree with. That is something that as a channel, that as a group, that we can agree with. Does not happen very often. We have done it before. So if there was a no politics Band-Aid, we definitely ripped that off. And we ripped that off of game trailers, a long time ago, I think, because it does happen, which brings me to the other part of of my answer, which is this China thing with Blizzard is just unavoidable, man. Like, this is not, we can get into the politics of specifically why they're doing it, but it's there are lots of political topics that you could bring up that you'd be like, gaming podcast, bit of a stretch. That's why, like 2 of my big things are education and the environment. I don't do editorials on them very often. I don't bring them up in the podcast very often. They're extremely outside of the gaming space. Maybe not education, because games can be used as education. The environment, most certainly. Video games and the environment are almost kind of like, like the light and the darkness. Like, they're very, very opposites. So like, and like funding is slashed for, national parks. I get very sad. You share that with you. I don't bring that up because it just it's not, pertinent to the conversation. What happened in China was about censorship. What happened in China was about, somebody in our business that has a job very similar to ours not being able to say something that they wanted to say. And then we talked about that on a podcast, because on the podcast, we are doing the exact same thing that person was doing. We are using a platform around games to talk about things that we want to talk about, whether they're political, whether they're personal, whether they're about China or anime or camping or whatever, and so that, and, like, they're already planning protests like around BlizzCon. It's like, we can't go to BlizzCon and just like, excuse me. Phew, time to just play games and ignore what's going on outside. And so I know it might seem, you use the analogy of a Band-Aid ripping off, and so I know it might seem like the floodgates are open, and like they're not. There are, pick the right word here. Resistance. There is a resistance in Easy Allies against those things coming out, always. Like there is I was going to use the word tension, which is not the best word, but like there is because that denotes like unhappiness. Like there is I don't know, like an ozone layer. Like there is a measure of like approval process. You know what I mean? Boy, really having a hard time describing that specifically. And a vetting process, if you will. And so what you see is a very small percentage of the possible things that we could talk about. Again, a lot of that stuff is also dictated by hosts. So again, that is the decision of Kyle Bossman, whether he wants to make that a part of the Easy Allies podcast. Certainly all of us can weigh in on it, but ultimately he is the producer of that show. Ben Moore is the producer of Frame Trap, so it is ultimately his decision whether he wants to put that on there. So again, it's the difference of us representing Easy Allies as a large community, making decisions as that community, and making public statements as that community, or whether it is something that we say on a show, or whether it's something that affects the way that we do business, affects the way that this business is affected. This will affect Blizzard stock. This will affect Blizzard sales. This will affect Blizzard's community. This will affect Blizzard in a big way. And you know that, just on a personal level, you know that I talk about marketing all the time. Like I love trailers. I love what the weird stuff Fortnite's doing right now. I love that silly 24-hour Pokemon Forest live stream. Like I love weird publicity stunts. And it would be silly. It'd be weird. I would feel very, very strange to talk consistently about all of these things that these companies are doing intentionally to try to get a conversation around their games. And then if a company did something really, really stupid, I'm not going to let them off the hook, man. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to be like, what? Like, just as in you should have known not to announce a Diablo mobile game the way you did. You should have known not to do anything about this situation and just let that guy say what he wants to say and move on. Strictly from a business perspective, I can talk about that for hours, not even get into politics. That was just a bad programming decision. That was a bad producer, a bad CEO, bad marketing, bad. And to me, that naturally not only fits into Easy Allies, but it fits into the Easy Allies podcast. That's what we talk about. We talk about what's going to affect these businesses, and this is a major thing that's going to affect these businesses. Sometimes I walk in and I grab Kyle and I'm like, hey, we're going to talk about this? This thing that happened this week, and we're going to talk about that? And Kyle's like, nah, we're not going to talk about that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't even ask. I was like, of course we're going to talk about this. There's no question. If we got to the end of that podcast and hadn't brought it up, I'd be like, what is happening? What? Like, we are talking about this situation with Blizzard because this is just what's happening in the industry that week. Maybe that speaks to what's going on in politics right now, that some of these things are so big that we are getting to the point where social media is so prolific that these things, affect these companies in huge ways. And my camera is super bright. Look at this. There's a giant cloud over my house when I started the stream. But there we go. Alec Church with a much lighter question. Thank you, M-Bun, for bringing that up. And it might sound like I disagree with you, M-Bun, but I want what you want at the same time. Like, I don't want it to make our audience uncomfortable. I don't want it to get in the way. I don't want you to cringe, when like our podcasts start, if you know something that happened that week. I just, but at the same time, I don't really feel guilty. It was weird after the podcast and Frame Trap when I was done. I definitely had moments of like, was that okay? What did I say? I think we're okay. Were we okay? I think we're okay. And I do feel good about, it is a learning process. I have had people reach out to me on social media that they were like, interesting point. Here's my rebuttal. I liked what you said. I didn't like what you said. And I listened to all of those things and I take all of that stuff to heart. And so, we don't come out here and being like, and that's our political stance. It's like, and that's how we feel. Let's start a conversation. Let's keep this conversation going, just like everything else, just like Yoshi, just like anime, just like, Pokemon Silver. Let's keep talking about it. Alec Church, 2 reviews going up near each other on a Sunday. Does that mean you had a long weekend? Yes, I did. Which leads me to today's editorial. Little bit longer episode today. Just a little bit longer. So I won't take a ton of time with today's editorial. But I want to talk about Easy Allies being a seasonal business. We are in Q4, everybody. The fourth quarter of 2019. So you have these little 3-month gaps. And I just kind of want to set up, for some of this might be extremely familiar to a lot of you. But it's those of you who are new, and maybe some of you who maybe think this but don't necessarily think about it. But every month is really different because there are definitely some months that stand out. E3 months, December, winter is a big thing, but obviously December is much different. And of course we all have, our own special events, and summer is a huge deal with all the conventions and everything. But essentially, basically kick off the year with looking ahead at the year, talking about a lot of our anticipated stuff. We now do our GOTYs, in January, which has worked out really well. I think we're all kind of on the same page as far as doing that in January now. And then February through... once you're in April, you're really starting to plan for the summer and you're really starting to prep for E3. But nearing the end of Q1 and getting into the beginning of Q2 is not necessarily feature heavy, but definitely gives us an opportunity to do a lot more features because it's a lot of interesting games come out. Again, you got Last of Us this coming up this February, and you have Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal now happening on the same day in March. But at the same time, these are big tentpole events that happen in these months, but it's just nothing compared to, October, November, and December. Specifically October and November are just ridiculous. And then you have the summer months, which are very event focused. And so obviously E3 kicks everything off. E3 is something that we cover, that we pay attention to, that means more to us than a lot of other events that happen throughout the year. More September, October, November. Yeah, December gets quiet. It's not like December's busy, not because it's the industry. The industry doesn't do a lot in December, but we are doing a lot in December because we're getting ready to wrap up the year. Cover everything you can before you bail. And then near the end of the summer, once we get past PAX, once we get past TGS, we get into this crazy review season. And so see if I can bring up my schedule and we can talk about just very briefly what I was doing last week. But so last week, so I get up, I go see Joker on Sunday because I had the spoiler mode on Monday. So I get up, do Cup of Jones Monday morning, and then I have the spoiler mode from 1 to 2 that we shoot, and then I go home that night and cut that spoiler mode to go up that night, and then I have to get up very, very early in the next day, and I also had to get all of the showcase stuff because some people are they wait until the very last minute to post their showcase stuff. So I always like to check it the night before, but it was an extremely early showcase. So I was up late that night and then on very little sleep. I can't remember what mood Milo was in that night, but I was definitely scared. Please don't be up all night. Please don't be up all night. So then I meet Brad first thing in the morning for a 10 a.m. showcase. I get to the studio, I think around 9. I think I'm up 7:30. It was nice not having to shave that day. And then I bailed on the group stream that night because I was cutting Borderlands. So I'm cutting Borderlands. So I finished the showcase and then I go right into Borderlands. And I love that all of this stuff is happening around me. Reaction shots, the easy update where Dawn went to Jurassic Park, the stream selection stream, the original spoiler mode for Link's Awakening, and the group stream that night. We shot some Design Lab stuff, another episode of Prison of Love that night. So I love that all this stuff is happening while I'm working on Borderlands. But I work on Borderlands pretty much all that night going into Wednesday. That was a very big elaborate edit. A lot of clips in that game. Definitely wanted to showcase the breadth of Borderlands without spoiling too much. And then we get into Wednesday and I had the Zelda impressions video that night. And Wednesday, I think I was on Milo duty. I think I was babysitting for Milo, playing as much Link's Awakening as I could. And then I sat down with Ian and Damiani that night. And then Thursday, of course, was Pokemon Silver along with the podcast. And then I had the podcast to cut the podcast that night, which went into the next day, caught up on sleep during the day, then shot Frame Trap that night. And then Amanda had a couple events this weekend that I attended with Amanda. So Sunday, I didn't really do anything. Sunday, I was just I am sleepy now, just as I am regularly sleepy, having to deal with a, almost 4-month-old child. But last week was pretty gnarly. And I don't bring that up because I actually bring that up to be the opposite of my job's hard. My job's awesome. Easy Allies is awesome. Our studio is awesome. Our schedules are awesome. It's so great that we can live stream something and shoot something at the same time. I feel like such a rock star whenever we do that. It's really fun. As you will see when we shot this last episode of Mysterious Monsters, we have friends that come in and crew that show. And so it's fun to see them. It's fun to see Jason Wishnoff. It's fun to Ian the other day was setting up the Link's Awakening thing, and I was sitting, we were waiting for Damiani, and Ian just went over and he was like turning the lights on, and he stopped and he like turned to me and he was like, I can't believe that we have the studio. And I'm like, I know, man. It's so nuts. It's so nuts that we're here and actually we could just like stroll in and it's air conditioned and I have my glass of water and we're just going to talk about Zelda. Yeah, and then, Huber just finished, Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, and now he's going right into, like 2 other things. I have 2 reviews right now, and, there's other games coming up that I'm also going to want to play just to get ready for GOTYs. It's the middle of October, and I'm already looking at November and December, like, ooh, I might not have time to play all the GOTY games I want to play. I want to play all of Death Stranding. I want to finish Control. I even want to kind of check out Fire Emblem. I had that hit the other night because I was playing all these great RPGs on my Switch, and it's like, I might as well do it. I might as well just get Fire Emblem and do it. Maybe, certainly not beat it, but at least like play enough of it. So when, Ben is doing this like impassioned, like 30-minute speech during GOTYs about Fire Emblem, I'm not like, meh. I can at least be like, totally. I know. Yes. I know that one character name you just said. I do know that. I did pick, and I'm here for that 30-minute speech. You know what I mean? Like I love being, it was fun, playing as much of Persona as I did, the year that it was nominated, and I playing Dragon Quest 11 last year. Like there's always something that I want to try to like, not necessarily get outside my wheelhouse because it's an action RPG, but I was, watching, not necessarily action RPG, strategy RPG, but, I was watching, Ben play it. Somebody was playing it in the studio when I came in, to our group stream. Somebody was playing on Switch and I like looked at him, and they had their archer like had a volley and just like wiped out a whole crew. And I'm like, ooh, I think there's like one school that's like big on archery. It's like, well, there's that decision made. So yeah, basically long story short, I guess this is an apology for not having a new episode of Trailer Jones done, just because we are so deep in it, and I have had crazy projects, and we had phase 4, obviously had a wild summer with the kid. I don't really remember a lot of stuff that happened in 2019 before that, but it's tough because our job evolves as the year goes on. Our job not affects, but speaks to the industry, and the industry speaks to our job. And so, sometimes we do things in reaction to that stuff. Sometimes we do things to comment ahead of things happening. Sometimes we do things as things are happening live. Sometimes we are directly a part of the story. Like in the case of Indivisible, I like the podcast quotes like wound up in Indivisible. So it's a weird biz, and it's tough to know, when to do reactions to a state of play versus an Xbox versus a direct, when to take that time, when someone should leave a group stream to focus on reviewing a game, or editing a video, or when we can say yes to appearing on something like Mysterious Monsters or Frame Trap, or when we need to work on something else. All of that is constantly in flux. It's never easy 100% to give you an answer to that. And that is scary for me as editor-in-chief of this enterprise, or as an equal partner of Easy Allies LLC, to ask you for money and then kind of throw our schedule up in the air sometimes and be like, I don't know. Don't really want to make too many promises about what we're capable of doing. I know Blood is very wary of making promises on what games we're reviewing. Sometimes I get nervous when I talk about, events that people have gone to, even if when we have clearance to do so. I have the clearance to tell you that I do have a copy of, Little Town Hero, and that I am playing it for review, that I do want to review it. Will I review it? I don't know. As we've learned in this Cup of Jones, we're due for somebody reviewing a game that's too difficult for them to finish. Or in the case of Blood, the motion controls are just stupid. And just stack on top of everything that I've just said with the fact that who knows how long these games are. Who knows how long Death Stranding is really? Like, who knows how long Persona 5 is before you play it, or Dragon Quest 11, or Red Dead Redemption 2. Who knows how much Call of Duty multiplayer you really need to play before you can, offer your, or how long it'll take you to finish that new Hitman mission. Like, there's just a lot of uncertainty in covering this industry. There's a lot of ups and downs, and October and November are the shakiest months. And so I'll probably do this editorial every year. I'll definitely have more to say about this the next time we get into this review season. But given how hardcore we are into it, and given how I looked back at that last week, it was like, wow, I was always doing something. That was nuts. And again, it's not like I don't always have work to do. It's just like I really had something to do. I had something that was late. I guess that's the difference, is that like every time I moved on to another project, it was like, well, that should have been done yesterday, but I'm going to do the best I can. So apologies that Concrete Genie review could have gone up earlier. Apologies that Borderlands 3 review could have gone up earlier. Apologies, no episodes of Trailer Jones, and but I am on a lot of videos coming up. I'm on Frame Trap. I'm on Mysterious Monsters. I'm on the next episode of Friend Code. I'm on every single podcast this month. And I will be on the group stream. I'm making a plan to be on the group stream tomorrow night, even though I was not on the group stream this last week. Our takeaways from today: write a script that, when executed, makes the Easy A podcast public. No problem. Make the row of chairs on Trailer Jones a little bit shorter? Question mark. Because I don't know. I'll take a look at it and see if I like it. I'll see if I can do it. Pokemon Sword and Shield spoiler mode, if possible. Again, no promises, because it all depends on enough people playing it in time. Maybe if Kyle and I finish it. I know Ben would want to be on that. Ian would probably want to be on that too. I would love to have Ian on that, because maybe he doesn't necessarily need to finish it to be on the spoiler mode. But hopefully we can do that before we all take off into December. And don't let a cold take out the allies during this season, this wonderful season of ours. That would definitely ruin things. If a cold takes us out, the maximum allies I believe it should take out is 2. And then that's when we put up a red alert, DEFCON 5, and we lock those allies out. We change the keys. We don't let them in. And we all weather the storm. And there we go. That's our Cup of Jones. A little bit longer. A little bit more than an hour this time. Next Ian and Don stream is on the schedule. Nice. Mushworks asked in chat there, and Blood's on it. Neo. So yeah, I'm going to see you. I don't have as many shoots to do. It's weird. I'm like, I got to get ready for a thing today. And it's like, no, this week's a little bit easier. But I do have some games to play. I played a little bit of Ghost Recon Breakpoint with Huber last night. That was fun. We ran around for like 3 hours. It's very fun being in the passenger seat of a car when Huber's driving it, and Huber's just bombing over cliffs and stuff. And it's fun. There was one moment where Huber, I don't know if it'd be captured in the footage, but there's one moment where Huber was like, all right, Jones. He's like, I'm gonna go do a research break really quick. I'll be right back. Let's try to stealth this part. And I was like, okay. So I like got up on a ledge and I like sniped one tower, sniped another tower, sniped another guy. And then he's like, all right, I'm back. And I'm like, cool, I cleared some towers. And then he like turned the corner and walked right into a drone. And I was like, all right. Not to throw him under the bus. I just thought that was a funny moment. See, games are fun. We can't stop playing games. We couldn't stop doing this if we want. But Amanda wants me to stop doing this because she has voiceover to do. So it's my turn to watch Milo. Cheers, everybody. Thank you so much for, again, all your patience with all the stuff going on with Phase 4. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks for watching Cup of Jones. I'll see you tomorrow night. Cheers.